yourself to. All right. So similar to when we attempted this last time, we'll be looking at what task-based learning is. We'll examine the task cycle because the task cycle is an important component to task-based learning. And we're going to also examine, the screen is blank. Thank you. That's weird. Thank you for letting me know and not just letting me ramble on. How is that?
Yeah, that's okay now. Mina, we can see you now.
Okay, thank you very much for letting me know.
Okay.
I don't think you missed anything. Okay. All right. So yeah, we'll look at what task-based learning is, examine the task cycle. There is something called task-supported learning. So we're going to examine the difference between these. And we will also take a quick look at project-based learning. But more importantly, we'll spend time looking at a task and we'll have a little time for reflection after. All right, but first, for those of you who joined last Thursday, I have some questions for you. You can answer in the chat. Are you an agelist? Do you know any agelists? If you were here last week, you may be able to answer this question. If you were not here last week and you have no idea what we're talking about, take a minute and you can Google this word agelist. It's a vocab word we discussed last week. We also talked about how if we're going to remember vocab, we need to recycle it. So I thought I'd take a moment and recycle some vocabulary here. I don't think any of you are agelists, but I'm sure you know some. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Hello, hi Mina.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. I'm not an agelist, and I know of one agelist. So they normally keep quiet whenever a joke has been cracked. They tend to make you feel like the joke is dry, yet it's very funny. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that is how they make you feel. That's very true. Patricia says, no, I'm not, but she knows at least one. Anne says, I'm the exact opposite of an agelist, and I do know one or two. Ravina says, I am not, but I know some who are. Very good. Hopefully you don't have a bunch of students who are ageless, and then you tell a joke in the classroom and none of them laugh. That would, when you said that, Jeffrey, it reminded me of having those kinds of students. And you know the joke is very funny, but... All right, my next question is, when is the last time you saw an obelisk? Oh, what is the opposite of ageless, Amali? Oh, it might be here. I'll put this word in. I don't know. This isn't exactly the opposite, but it might be someone who is a bon vivant. A bon vivant is someone, it's a French word. I put it in the chat. A bon vivant is a French word referring to someone who likes to enjoy life, but they usually like to eat and drink a lot too, but they like to laugh. Oh, glad you could join us, Celestine. Okay, Collins, you are not an ageless. Oh, and one of, you know, one of the cabinet secretaries. Caroline saw an obelisk 3 months ago. Here you go. Anne says last month. Robina says last year at the cemetery. And Nancy says last time I attended a burial, but can't remember one exactly. Lillian says 1 year ago. I actually saw one this weekend. I drove by a cemetery and I saw some and I said, oh, I've seen those all my life, but I never knew the name. All right, next question. How do you feel about petrichor? Do you like it? And has a very enthusiastic yes. Robina also very clear yes. Liking petrichor. Caroline likes the smell so much. Very good. Josiah likes it too. I also do. Good. You too, Seth. Yes, I think most people do. Nancy loves it. Patricia says yes. Benedict says the smell is great. Yeah, it's I think very fresh smell. All right. Next question. There's only one answer for this. What is the penultimate letter in the English alphabet? Very good, Anne. Benedict, Josiah. Excellent. We know that Z is the ultimate or last letter, and Y is the penultimate. Very good. Okay, my last question for you for vocabulary review. Have you ever experienced bibliosmia, and when? I haven't experienced it in a long time. Oops. In a bookshop, that is a great place to experience bibliosmia. Oh, Rabina, lucky you, yesterday. Excellent. In the library. Very good, Josiah. That's another great place to experience that. In the Kenya National Library. Excellent. So I can tell by your answers that you have you did a good job retaining our vocabulary from last week, which is really good because it's very easy to get our vocabulary at the time, but then for it to fade. But I can see from your answers that you have retained the meanings. In a bookshop. Very good. Every time you walk into the library. Yeah, that's true. That is basically the smell of a library, Patricia. That's a good point because we've got all those old books in there. Great. In the TV while announcing about back to school. Interesting. Okay, we're going to move on. Last night, when reading a book at home, very good. And so you're just smelling your book. In my mind, I'm imagining, if my screen is blank again, is this true for everybody or just Josiah? Can others see my screen?
Yes. Yeah. I can see
Okay,
it.
you can see it. Josiah, it might be something with your connection. Go ahead, Josiah.
Yes, sometimes you're appearing, then you disappear. So I wonder what could be the problem.
It might be
Like
your.
the screen is blank at the moment.
Okay, but not for everyone else. All right.
Okay, I think
Yeah.
so.
But
I
Patricia
think-
can't see my screen either. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, so some of you
Yes.
can and some of you can't. Here, I'll
Okay.
reshare. Thank you. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see it now. Go ahead. Josiah, is your hand still up or are you?
Yeah, now you're visible. You can see
Okay.
now.
Okay, so
Thank you.
yeah, I guess if you send me a little note when that happens again, I'll just redo it and then it should come back for you. Thank you. All right, so task-based learning is something that we talked about a bit last week. Now we're talking about it again. We ran out of time and I felt like we were really rushing. And I think it's an important topic that is really useful, even if you don't use project-based learning or task-based learning exactly as it's defined here. There are a lot of ways to adapt it, and it is really useful. In fact, it is considered to be a strong version of the communicative method. And so we can just see here that a lot of words related to task-based approach, engage, analysis, activity, language outcome, all of these are important. And this is review from last week. This definition here, I used last week as well. The goal is for students to use authentic language to complete a meaningful task with a defined project. These can also take the form of a long-term or ongoing projects, and this would be project-based learning. So I think it's important for us to notice these words: authentic language. This is necessary to task-based language. So using language that people really do use. They're going to do something meaningful. We'll talk more about that, and it will have a defined product. These are all important parts of this. So TBL can also be known as TBLT, so task-based language teaching instead of just task-based learning. And it can also be called TBI, task-based instruction. These are all the same thing. So if you see TBL, TBLT, TBI, we're talking about the same thing. So this is a general overview of TBL in its most strict form. But we're going to look at other forms of it as well that aren't as strict. But when we're looking at it in its strictest form, first thing that happens is the teacher sets up an activity for students that uses authentic language focused on meaning. So a very specific kind of activity. Then the students work to complete the activity, and when they're done, they present their results to the class. So it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a presentation, but they share whatever they did with the rest of the class. And this is a very important part of this. The teacher uses this activity to conduct formative assessment and bases the next lesson on this. So while the students are working on their activity and while they're presenting their results, the teacher the entire time is doing formative assessment. Formative assessment is something that we talked about a few weeks ago. Basically, the teacher's collecting information, noticing what kinds of mistakes learners are making, what their strengths are, and what's something that they don't have or that they're weak at and they still need. And so the next day's lesson will be centered on that. So when the teacher sets up the activity, this is called the pre-task. When the students are doing the activity, this is the task itself. And then when the teacher creates the lesson for tomorrow or the next lesson is considered the post-task. This is this kind of strict formal definition of task-based learning. So this is something that many of you will recognize, not only from last week, but because we did this activity a long time ago. I think maybe even a month ago that we did this. So this would be an example of an activity. Students are put in groups and they're given this scenario. The boat is sinking. There's a desert island nearby. You can swim there, but you can only take one bag. Choose 4 items to help you survive on the island. So the teacher says to the class, all right, work as a group and choose 4 items to take with you to the desert island. And then after you guys make your choices, you're going to explain your choices to the rest of the class. This is something that we did. This is a fun activity I've done with students as well. So the teacher notices while the students are talking together, and then when they present their lists, the teacher notices that the students are making a lot of errors with the past conditional, or they're not using it. Instead of saying we would need a water filter to get fresh water, maybe instead they use the future, we will need water, so we will bring a filter, which is not wrong, but she notices that because they're not comfortable with this past conditional, they're using other tenses. When they do try to make the tense or the conditional, they're making a lot of mistakes with it, with the form. And so the teacher decides that tomorrow's lesson will be about past conditionals. So using the activity to do formative assessment and then lesson plan based on it. So in this example, instead of having typical PPP where the teacher presents the language first, then the students practice, and then they produce, we have something more like this. The students produce the language first, then the teacher presents the grammar, then students practice the grammar, and then again, they produce. And this doesn't happen in one day. This produce part happens in one day, and then probably this next 3 parts will happen in 1 or 2 days. So let me turn this over to you. You can answer in the chat or you can raise your hand. What are some advantages of this approach or strategy? What are some good things about it? If you are unmuting yourself, it should be to answer the question. Okay. Yes, you are absolutely correct, Teresa. This is a very learner-centered approach. Instead of the teacher saying, oh, I think students need to work on this, the teacher actually finds out directly from the students what it is they need. Good. Celestine says the advantage is that you can be able to get feedback from the learners and their progress. Very good. Yeah, because you're really doing a lot of assessment here. Excellent. Good. We can tap into students' creative ability because yes, it is a very creative kind of activity in order, if we're going to be using authentic, meaningful activities, we will have a lot of creativity. Very good. Oh, Adila, I like how you said that, from unknown to known. Very good. In several ways, right? We don't know what the learners need, and so the unknown becomes known, and maybe they're missing something that they need, and so there the unknown becomes known too. Very good. Nijangwe says the teacher will begin from the known to the unknown. Very good. That is, the teacher gets feedback on what they know and builds on it or corrects. So yeah, I think what you and Odelia are saying are playing off each other really well. Good. A teacher easily notices the learner's weakness. Yes. And then can plan systematically to deal with it. Good. Lillian says students' confidence and communication skills improve. Very good, because it is really a lot of fluency-based, communicative-based. In this first activity, there's not that focus on grammar. Good. Josiah knows that the feedback is almost immediate. Very good. That's true, right? The next day, the teacher delivers something that is needed. Lorian says the second model helps the teacher to identify what learners need to learn and present content according to their needs, and students practice and produce based on a specifically needed information. Very good. Yeah, so we're not just wasting time telling students something they don't need. Good observation, Nancy M. As tasks mimic real life, so the students' confidence can really be built. Yeah, they're doing something that is related to real life. It appropriates learner differences since they have different abilities. That's absolutely true, Lillian. This is very well suited to learner differences. And Molly says, I think it helps the teacher to identify the challenges that learners have. Students' involvement also makes it to be a learner-centered form of learning. Absolutely. Good. Benedict says, immediate and authentic feedback from learners. Yes. And it enhances student leadership skills, Adelia says. Very good. Yeah, because they also have this responsibility for sharing. Good. And Judith notes it would build a creative and active classroom. Yes. The students are not passive in this classroom at all. Very good. Of course, nothing is perfect. So I also am curious about what you think some disadvantages are for this approach. Oops, I did not mean to do that. All right, so Patricia says, or sorry, Adelia says it could be monotonous for fast learners. That's true. They might be ready to move on. If they had no issues in the activity, then they don't really need the second lesson. And I want to acknowledge what Patricia said earlier, that the approach creates meaning to the learners. Absolutely, that would be an advantage. Yeah, Nancy M, planning for this session is time consuming, right? First, you have to come up with this activity, and then you can't really prepare for the next day until you've done this activity, because you need to know what they need, and it may be something that you are able, or something you need to research. You have really no idea. Yes, Lillian also notes the time consuming nature and agrees, which needs a lot of preparation. It might take a long time to solve each learner's challenge. So that also points out something, Benedict. They might have different challenges, right? Hopefully they all have a similar issue, but if you notice that everybody has a different issue, that's a problem. Yeah, that's true too, Lorian. If it's not well planned, students will feel stuck, their needs won't be met, or they might get bored as well. They might, not all students might be able to participate, and sometimes might not cater for individual needs of learners. Yeah, if, as I mentioned earlier, if it's that third conditional that most students are having an issue with, but maybe there's some low-level students who really can't even make any conditionals, then they're going to be kind of lost in this. Good. Seth says planning and preparation time is consuming. Absolutely right. Imali says some students may fail to participate in the activity, thus identifying their challenge becomes a problem, and introverted learners might be withdrawn from the activity. Yes. Yeah, those kind of more passive students are going to struggle here. Very good. And time consuming. Yes, that's something you all noticed. Also, I think in terms of practicality, I don't know that most teachers have the freedom to do this either. Most of us are working with a set curriculum. And so we cannot just say, oh, my students need this. Oh, my students need that. In a perfect world, we could do that. But most of us are teaching from a set curriculum, and we have certain things that we need to address. Yeah, Adelia, that's a good point too. It really tasks the teacher with being creative and innovative and coming up with good activities or tasks. Otherwise, it will become repetitive. Very good. So many people feel as you all do. They saw this approach came out, and a lot of people said, oh, there's so much great stuff about this approach, but it really doesn't work in my situation or context. And so we came up with a version called task-supported learning. Task-supported learning is a much more relaxed, less strict form of task-based learning. And sometimes these days, when you hear people talk about task-based learning, they're actually referring to task-supported learning. So task-supported learning follows the typical PPP lesson format. So like in a typical classroom, the teacher first presents the grammar or vocabulary or whatever content, then the students practice, then the students produce. And when they produce, that's when the task happens. And so the grammar is, or specific language is presented beforehand. Therefore, you can follow the curriculum if or syllabus that your school or administration has already set, and you can plan ahead. You can also rely more on textbooks and created materials instead of having to do everything yourself, as you might need to do in a task-based situation. So the task is designed for students to use the new language introduced in the lesson. So if I'm teaching I don't know, reported speech. I explain reported speech. We do maybe a worksheet on reported speech. And now I'll give a task for the students, but I've already decided we're going to work on reported speech. I'm not going to wait and see what I notice my students need. So something that is similar to task-based is it's still using the same definition of a task, which I think is one of the most important parts of this. And it also uses a task cycle. It uses a pre and post task, but it uses them very differently. So we'll look at these last 2 points more closely. So what is a task? This is a key part of this whole thing. So a task is a specific type of activities. We have many kinds of activities, and a task is an activity. It's just a very specific type. Good question. And so a task is a goal-oriented activity in which learners use language to achieve a real outcome. This is one Willis, this is a fairly recent quote, 2016, but she and her husband actually have been writing about, researching, talking about task-based learning for many years. Actually, her and Noonan would be two of the main people involved in this. So when we're talking, if we're trying to look at an activity and determine, is this activity a task? We have some questions we can ask ourselves, kind of a checklist. So is it meaningful to learners? If I give students a worksheet with just some random examples on it, it's not going to be meaningful to learners. They don't know who these people are. It's just a grammar exercise. It has no meaning to learners. If it's a task, it has a real world application, meaning it has some connection to the real world. It might be a direct connection or it might be an indirect connection. Again, a grammar exercise really has none of that. It focuses on the meaning of language rather than form. So we're not worried about correct grammar, correct spelling, but just trying to communicate. This is very important. It has a clear end product. We'll look more at this. And it doesn't have to be collaborative. This is actually not one of the key aspects, but often tasks are collaborative. They're often done in pairs or groups, but they can be done alone. So if you have students who prefer working alone, they can still use tasks. So we'll look closer at this. So when we're talking about if something is meaningful to learners, can they apply their own experience or their own opinions to it? So if you give learners a situation where students are in school learning English, well, that can be meaningful to them because they have their own experience. Or if you simply ask students if they like something, it immediately has meaning because they're applying their own opinions, their own ideas. Real world application, as I mentioned, means it's connected to the real world either directly or indirectly. So if it happens in the real world, so maybe, for example, if there were some students in the US that were immigrants, the teacher might tell them to go to the library and get a library card. And that would be a task that happens in the real world. Or we could imagine something in the real world. Maybe students role play a situation where they get a library card. So focus is on the meaning of language. What we mean here is that we're focused on communication, not grammar or any of those other mechanics. Clear end product means that there is something at the end that all of us can see or hear, and it can be assessed. It doesn't have to be formally assessed, but it can be assessed. So again, we have this activity that I brought up earlier, and this activity is a task. It's meaningful to learners because they choose by themselves what items they get to use. And so right away, it's meaningful to learners. They're bringing their own experience and opinions into it. It's not directly real world. We're not going to really strand our students on a desert island, but we are asking them to use their imaginations in this. It's focused on the meaning of language. We're not telling students to use any specific form. If they make mistakes with the form, it's quite all right. They just need to communicate with their peers what they want to do. I agree. Lorian says, I love TaskBen. It's very useful for students' benefits since they connect materials in their own life perspectives and the language is acquired easily since it is used and practiced. Yeah, and hopefully it keeps the that effective filter, that stress of using language low, because we're not saying, and make sure you use this tense and don't make any mistakes. And I'm listening for mistakes. It kind of just lets them kind of play with the language. Okay, and this task also has a clear product. So at the end, they will have a list of the 4 items. That's a product. And it actually has a second product too, because they will share their list with the class. And so the teacher could just, it wouldn't be very good, but the teacher could assess the list itself, but probably the teacher is going to assess when the students explain their list and why they chose those things. And in this case, this is collaborative. Oops. As the students are working in groups or pairs. Nancy has a question. On actual implementation, would you follow the students to the library to check on communication skills or recruit the librarian to assist in assessing the assignment? That's a great question, Nancy. I guess it depends on the class. It's hard to imagine because it's not the kind of class that we would probably have here in Kenya, but if, for example, we have a lot of ESL classes where migrants or immigrants who haven't gotten jobs yet are taking these classes. And so the teacher might very well be able to go with them and kind of listen in on them if they're able to do it. It might be, the assessment might be, do they come back with a library card or not? If they come back with a library card, then they have achieved the task. We don't know how they achieved the task. Maybe they brought a friend with them. Maybe they used their phone to translate. We don't know, but it might not matter if they're doing an ESL class where they're getting survival English, then they have shown that they have the skills to navigate in society. So the teacher might just say, if you have a card, then you have met the task. But that is a good question. If I were working with younger learners, I would definitely want to accompany them or hopefully have someone check in with the librarian and how did the students do? Okay, who was able to do it? So-and-so needed his friend to help. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a really good question. To be honest, I've never done something quite that real world. I took students once to a coffee shop and they had to order their coffees and I was there to watch it, but it wasn't a formal assessment. And in the end, everyone got their coffee. So, and we practiced beforehand what they would ask, how they would manage paying, stuff like that. Okay, so again, I'm going to turn this over to you. I'm going to put you in breakout rooms for this. And we did this last time, but I've changed the situations and hopefully I've explained it better. So I have 4 activities here. Write 5 sentences in the simple past, make a 1-minute video about your family, post it to our WhatsApp group, tell your partner about your future goals, work in your group to write the steps for making Ugali. So I want you to imagine these are 4 different activities a teacher has assigned students. And so in your group, you're going to use this checklist and you're going to decide if each activity, is it a task or maybe it's just an activity. And it's okay if it's just an activity, but we're looking to see if it is a task. Oh, it's more refined than task-based. I find it more flexible myself. All right, so I will be sharing this to your groups so that you can see them in your breakout rooms. And I'm going to give about 4 or 5 minutes in the breakout rooms. How many rooms will we have? Okay, we have about 4 to 5 people in a room. I'll go ahead and open the rooms and share this. So you're looking at each of these boxes and deciding, is it a task based on this list here? And you may find that it almost is a task, but not quite in some cases. Okay, breakout rooms are open and I will set a timer and also share this.
Okay. Write 5 sentences in the past. And the simple past, sorry. We thought it's not a task because there's no. Okay, it is meaningful to the learners, yes, but it is not real world application because there's no experience that the students are going to have. Like, for instance, if they're watching a movie or maybe digging a shamba, it could be different. Then the other one is it doesn't focus on the meaning of language. It does, but now it is missing out in the part of real world application, according to what we agreed. I'm representing group 5, so clear product doesn't have also according to us, and then so now we thought about the 4 parts. This one was not a task but an activity. That's a view. We might be wrong, but we agreed and we felt it's not a task. Thank you for allowing me to speak first. Thank you.
Hi. On this one, make a 1 minute video about your family, post it on our WhatsApp group. I think it's a task. On the first part, it's meaningful to the learners. It is something that they will do it practically and gain some knowledge on it. Yes, it has a real world application as the learners will take an actual video clip and do it among themselves. It focuses on the meaning of language. It has a clear end product because we have the WhatsApp group, so we can go to the WhatsApp group and get the video. And on the last part, I don't think if it's video, he can do it by himself, the person. Thanks for
I can give it a try. Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's not a task because you're just expressing yourself. So you really don't have to think hard about what you're going to say and all that.
Oh, yes, Mina. Hello. Oh, yes. So I wanted to say something about what you've posted there. But tell your partner about your future goals. You know, this is an open question. And you would not say it's a task because there is no clear-cut rule or there is no specific thing that you will say, okay, everybody's goals must be set based on this and this and this, because people have different goals, and whatever goal someone has, you would not say that these goals are wrongly set or this is a bad goal, it's a wrong goal. So it cannot be a task because it's open. My goals are not somebody else's goals. So there is no clear cut, you cannot say based on this is a better goal, this is a bad goal, you know, that kind of a thing. Generally, we can say you cannot have a specific marking scheme for people and how they set their goals. So it cannot be a task. That's my understanding.
Yes, I think I can explain this way because almost all the criteria are included. Like it is meaningful doing it, writing down, even making, what they want to make for Ugari. And it's also Liwa because it's about health. It's about health. They wanted to know how to do it. So when they get hungry, they don't want to feel, they know how to make it. So they save themselves in the moment. And then there's also the language used, very meaningful to know the steps, like making the language used when we are about doing these things, about cooking and whatever, um and they also the product, which is like it's a bell clear. So if you can write the steps, then one can take the steps. I mean, using the the how do you call the book for cooking recipe? Yeah, recipe. So they have a recipe, and one can apply it. So it's very clear, and I really loved it when people worked on it, so to share these Zukri ideas. You know, it's almost like yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, yes, we do. We have different forms actually. We have different forms from cassava and maize or coins or wheat or well, you know, it's always like we have so many varieties. Even from sorghum. Sometimes we mix up sorghum and cassava and make up like wonderful. It's very thick and wonderful to eat it with like veggies, you know. Yeah, yeah. Uh, I think Nancy saying Shima, I don't know what she wanted to say. It's like,
No, I think he has commented on what I want to say because we are in the same group. Huh? So,
okay.
yeah, so I think yes, when he raised his hand, he was like, okay, they have picked him, but we're in the same group. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Uh-huh. Yeah, fufu. It's actually from Congo. It's fufu when you know Congolese people call it fufu, and here we call it ugari. It's like ugari in our language, but different from Swahili. You know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh. No problem.
No, so I just want to say that fufu is from Nigeria. I thought it's a Nigerian version for ugali. Thank you. Are we supposed to talk or type? Okay, okay. What are the benefits of using task in the classroom? I think the students really feel that the learning is part of them. They own the learning, and it makes students keep knowledge for a long time in their minds because they are involved in the learning, directly involved. Instead, unlike when the teacher is giving instructions and making notes of and so forth. So I think it makes the learner retain knowledge for a long time. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. My points goes to the benefits of using the task. I don't know if I'm also loaded to talk about the challenges. Yeah, okay. So for me, the benefits, I often find the task really loved it because I'm always thinking of the meaning, even my job being meaningful to the students. Like being preoccupied by what the students can be able to acquire at the end, and not only the language, like not only the language rules or knowledge or whatever, but also the skills involved in, the skills involved in, and also I'm so much also excited to see what students can do outside with the skills they've got. So I also support I support the task to be very useful for my students in class because it's always like it's something you can transfer to the real world. In something also you can transfer to different world opportunities. And number two, it's also about working together. It's working together, collaboration, because we are human beings because you're connected. So when we work together, there are a lot of benefits coming out. So yeah, that's why I was like, yeah, this is now real life thing in the classroom. And I always love the EL English language programs, the motto you have. Like we say, the classroom is the word is my class. Oh, I love this motto because it sounds like if you take the classroom as the class to the world, so you have to give students the task that's related to real life situation, the scenario coming, and students work on them to something that is real. So the challenge here, I also find the challenge to be it takes time for a teacher who is very useful to the students. And the thing of seeing also the clarity, you must make sure before you present to the students, you must see if it is clear to you. And if it is possible, sometimes required to go and find someone else who is not you to check for you. And this is going to take a lot of time, especially when a teacher is experiencing a burnout, and then also you have this burnout, and then you use a task. This is going to be a real poison to the students. That's why I think the challenge is like we need the teacher who is well centered, well set, who is in a good mood to think, and who is also giving to the students who might probably, due to the differences of the students, who might not like it. So there are so many challenges, but I can mention these a few.
Hello. Hello. The benefits of using tasks in classroom. There's that aspect of it enhances creativity. You know, when students are now able to perform the tasks on their own or in groups, there's that aspect of creativity coming out in that as much as you have taught them maybe a particular idea or a subject, is now for them, when they're now putting it into practice, they're able to bring out their creativity. You may have shown them one way of achieving or getting to the end, but they may come up with also other means of getting to the end of whatever it is that they are working on. And as someone said, it's always said, I see, I hear, I forget, I see, I remember, I do, I understand. So there's that aspect. They really get to understand whatever it is that they're learning when they do it practically. Now, as for the challenges, it needs a teacher who is very keen, someone who is able to go around and see the tasks being performed, because at times when they're working in groups, those students who tend to shy off at times may not participate fully during the task, and may leave it to those who are maybe outspoken, those who are quite active. So some of them may tend not really to take part in the task, but they may take part passively, but not actively. So it also needs someone who is very active for it to be successful. I think that's all I can say about it.
Oh, okay, hi. Yeah, so this works very well, I think, in blended learning. You see, like if you have to extend learning into maybe the children's houses or into their homes, then it's easy actually to give them tasks ahead. So I like this because when you give them such tasks and then when they come into the back into the classroom, then they just report. And that's how blended learning works. So it's very easy for this in that scenario where a teacher likes using blended learning, and I use that a lot. And also it's good for a subject like global perspectives because of the project learning aspect of it. So also in global perspectives, students work on their own quite a bit, and they kind of explore things, and this is also good for them. Apart from that, I like this because it also works well for IB, for the IB, either middle year or even the diploma section of it is very good for that. So yeah, the disadvantages would be that it could just create a lot of generalities with non-specifics. Sometimes if students have a lot of time on their own, or they're not guided, and the teacher is not careful to guide them, they can take charge and get to the wrong direction. So a lot of keeping tabs very closely is needed by the teacher, because students can mess, and they can actually get big-headed with the time that they're given, to explore on their own. So it's very important to keep directing them very closely. Yeah, that's all.
Yes. Hi, guys. Okay. So I have some points to share with you. I'll start with the benefits. And apparently, if there's an increase in learner decision making and initiative throughout the course or the studies, and students develop some knowledge and skills by working for an extended period of time to enhance or to research during their research in projects or even their studies, they tend to respond better to complex questions, problems, and challenges as well. And then for the challenges, I just have one. If there are learners that have short memory, like when they are working on their projects or their studies, and they tend to try to remember what the task was, what they've been researching, what they've been learning, and the decisions that they've been trying to make along the way. That can lead to some demotivation of these learners, and they will not especially when it comes to choosing of topics or the contents that they're supposed to be working on because of the memory availability. Yes.
Yeah, Mina, could you excuse me, please? I need to join another Zoom meeting. Yeah. Thank you for the session. Well, I really appreciate. Thank you. Bye. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Uh, um, I actually had a very specific question, Mina. I Yeah, I can go for it. This is related to the project-based learning, and which is always like uh, having an idea, but also wanting to check from the professionals what they think about it. Suppose you're in an environment like a school, a community, where you understand that you can lead students to do a project, and I've come to be in an environment, a school community where I don't see students' resources to read. And then I used to see students having talents to write. So is it something really useful that can be accepted to a planned student's task that is on their level? Then it might be not a task, I'm sorry, it's a writing project. Like students work together, conduct a project of writing, and then when they write down what they want to write down, for example, they have a talents of writing, so they write stories, poems, whatever, and then later you correct the students, work together, and then you make as a final product, and then you publish the work to the school, and then tell the students to go and read their material, students' material. Is it something really we can say accepted in terms of academics or something like that? Because like people don't want, they just want always to bring books that is really printed down the side, and that at least so that students, if they write it to their students, it sounds very benefiting to them because they learn from their own environment. This part you can bring different books, but I was like, haven't seen this thing happening. Is it possible that it can happen if you can read them well to end the projects and then you share? What do you think? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Then is it something accepted, like to read students, they read them and even accepted, like the resource they can based on, is it something that is advantageous or disadvantages on one side? Yeah, it sounds like we're always waiting the outside the materials, like authentic materials, then we bring to the students. But sometimes when you see like an environment where you cannot access them, and yet you see students have the gifts to do that, they have ideas, they have everything, then you teach them to do that, and then they do it, then you let them consume the same product. I was like, yeah, do they any disadvantage or advantage? Yeah. Hmm. Oh, okay. Wonderful. Thank you for a big yes. I can go for it then. Yeah.
Yes, so thank you, everyone. I think first I want to take the opportunity to just welcome the new teachers who joined us. The week has rather been, from last week, there's been quite a lot of activities that we have been doing. And part of them was we had this conference for teachers that had been organized by the US Embassy, Education USA, and I was one of the panelists. And through what I presented, a number of people showed interest to be part of this group. That's why we are seeing more people joining the WhatsApp group. So I want to thank you all. And then the second thing I want to mention is, I think like Mina has mentioned, that we are going to end these twice per week sessions. So we'll be going to once a week. So by Thursday, we'll be able to let you know which day we are going to pick, because we have a Tuesday and we have a Thursday. And then I also have one of my students here. I was aware of the coast, that is South Coast, and there's one of the programs that we are running as LPAC. And I just thought, since I've seen the students, he can briefly talk about the program and what we are doing together as LPAC. So Luceno, I want you to talk briefly about what we were doing in Kwale.
Thanks, Austin.
Yeah.
I must say, as Kwale, we are very privileged to be members of LPAC. And when we met, LPAC was making a follow-up on what was started at a hotel in Mombasa concerning project-based learning. And what we have realized is that project-based learning is learner-centered, kind of focuses on the learner away from the teacher. And so Austin and his group will be coming on 26th of May to assess what we have been doing so far. And I want to assure my fellow participants that this is the right forum, that the moment we focus on this learner, what Mina is telling us and what everybody is telling us, we stand to benefit a lot. And as if that is not enough, the moment you find yourself a member of this group, you as a teacher, it kind of opens up opportunities for you. As at now, I'm an alumni of Open Online Professional English Teachers Network, and also a member of TESOL, Teachers of English as a Second Language. And that is just but to mention a few of what benefits are in store, not only for the learners, but also for the teachers. Thank you, Austin.
Okay, thank you very much, Luceno, for just picking up that opportunity randomly. And I believe you have just heard from Luceno. The reason why I've also just picked Luceno randomly is because I know people asking me about how to register for LPAC, especially for the sake of people who have just joined. So, before this session started, I was able to send a link. There's a link that you can use to join the group. That is within the WhatsApp group. So there's a WhatsApp group. So if you're joining for the first time, since we share the link across different forums, then you just need to reach out to me. I'd already shared my number on the chat so that you can join the WhatsApp group. Then from there, you'll be guided on how to become a member of LPAC. So I just want to point out that I've just shared a link before the session started, and then later, where you need to go to that link and then you fill your details. It's a Google link. That one now, it will give you all the information, and you can always reach out to me or Mina in case of anything, since I'm not seeing any other officials of LPAC. So thank you very much, guys. And I think before you leave, I think it's also important for us to mention that all these sessions we are running, they were recommended by the teachers. It is you teachers who recommended these are the areas that we need to tackle. Are we together? So for those joining us for the first time, these are some of the areas that your colleagues were able to recommend so that we can tackle. And like Mina suggested, from next week, we will be doing one session per week. So we'll be having around 4 sessions per month. And Mina, this is supposed to go up to when is it? July or August?
I will be here until like the first week of August.
Okay. So basically we are talking between now and August. No, now and July. And then also want to point out, if you feel like there's something you want to share, you can always request me and Mina, then you can give you a slot of about 15 minutes so that you can share whatever you want. But we always prefer if you do it in a slide, in a PowerPoint form. So already there are some people who had shared some, but we encourage this as teachers so that we're also able to share what we are learning out there and how everything is going on with our students. So thank you, everyone. And Mina, I don't know whether we are going to take the group photo.
I'd love to take a group photo.
Yeah, so I want all of us, if you are able to turn on your video, and you can pose yourself well. I don't know if the ladies here need to do makeup first, or you are good to go. You are free. I can give you like 10 minutes. You just make sure everything is in order.
1 hour. We need 1 hour to get ready.
Go get our hair done. All right, I'm
Yeah,
gonna do
so-
one regular. All right,
Mhm.
let's see here. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Actually, let me, okay. 1, 2, 3.
Smiles.
Set the hour.
And then we'll do a classroom one. Okay.
Okay.
We go 1,
Oh,
2,
nice.
3. Very nice.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mina.
Thank you all. Thanks
So
for the
thank you,
great
guys.
discussion.
Let's meet on let's meet on Thursday. And please note that today we started at 5:30 because Mina just arrived. Mina had come from Nairobi. So that's why we had to push. But of course, next week we'll be there from 5. And thank you for your patience. Bye.
Bye all. Thanks.
Bye.